What's going on, everybody? We're looking at a pretty decent day for Bitcoin. Bitcoin, however, is at its resistance, that 69,000 previous cycle top. It is a matter of just breaking that and we can rally to our previous all-time high. Now, we did flash our golden cross last night, and we're also getting awful close to 1 million Bitcoin held by the spot Bitcoin ETFs. And we could actually get it this week if we see an average of $301 million in net inflows. We will reach 1 million Bitcoin held by the spot Bitcoin ETFs by the end of this week. Now, if we miss this, it's very likely we'll get it next week or sometime in November, but it is inevitable very, very soon, within days, within weeks. The spot Bitcoin ETFs will hold 1 million Bitcoin, or roughly 5% of the supply. And as said by Nate Gerasi, the Bitcoin ETFs were about 23,000 away from holding 1 million Bitcoin. And just quickly going over to IBIT, this is one of the spot Bitcoin ETFs. They have a total net assets of nearly $27 billion sitting in their funds. And they alone are currently holding 403,000 Bitcoin. Maybe by the end of the year, they get to 500,000 Bitcoin. I think it is possible. Now, I do want to talk about Microstrategy here in a second. But first off, Bitcoin, we saw our golden cross last night, and this could contribute to our chance to break out of previous cycle high and take out all-time high. These are our only two levels, in my opinion, that we need to break. Two crucial levels to break, and then we go parabolic. But we did just see our golden cross. Our last golden cross was back here in 2023 October. You saw that we started seeing some upward momentum. These two moving averages saw a death cross, but then shortly after we saw our golden cross, and it rallied from about 34,000 to all-time highs, with the only hitch being the spot Bitcoin ETFs going live and the little buy the rumor, sell the news event. That if you got shaken out, I feel bad for you. But in my opinion, Bitcoin is about to break that previous cycle top. Once we can reclaim that, then it's a matter of breaking all-time high. It is now getting more and more universally accepted that 49K back in August was in fact the bottom. What do you know? I do think if we don't break it yet, we're going to probably consolidate in this range from 65,000 to that 70,000 or 69,000 or so cycle top. And we're gonna stay in this range until we potentially test this ascending support. So keep an eye on this ascending support. We have bounced off it twice. If we don't break out within a month, first off, I'd be surprised, but also it's very important to watch this if we don't break out. If we come to approach this by the end of November and we haven't broken out of that peak, which I'd expect by then, so honestly, this will probably be irrelevant information, but if we don't break out and somehow, if we don't break out and we're by the end of November, if we break this, we might see some pain. A test of 65K if we don't see it by then. But to me, things are looking good. That to me looks like a textbook bull flag if you ask me. You see that huge rally, a little bit of descending consolidation, and then that next breakout. All we need is that next breakout. But here's basically the bull flag, the corrective wave after the huge rally, the profit taking that ensues after a huge run. I think we are looking at that. All we need is that breakout of the descending resistance on the monthly. We got it on the daily. Now we just need to break that pattern on the monthly. And a lot of people are watching for that. Now, I do want to talk about Microstrategy. There's a lot of stuff floating around regarding Microstrategy lately. And before I get into this, I will say I do expect Microstrategy to continue to outperform Bitcoin, along with many of the Bitcoin miners that are still doing so, even with this pullback. Even with many of these Bitcoin miners down 50%, 40%, 60%. Some of them have still outperformed Bitcoin even with that pullback. How much are they going to outperform Bitcoin when the euphoria comes back? When they're outperforming Bitcoin again at a 3x, at a 4x ratio. But anyways, I do expect MicroStrategy to outperform at times. I'll leave this article down below for you guys, but it's basically saying that if it's going to keep its premium above Bitcoin, MicroStrategy needs significant demand. Well, the reality is in a bull run, MicroStrategy will have a premium to Bitcoin, and in a bear market, this premium will mostly be absorbed. When there is bullish speculation, the derivatives, the Bitcoin miners, the MicroStrategies, the coinbases, they will have premiums. They will be overvalued versus Bitcoin where it's traditionally trading at. In a bear market, these discrepancies get much narrower. Now, Steno Research says this analyst Mads Eberhardt noted that confidence is bolstered by the waning impact of MicroStrategy's stock split. I think what they mean is the hype is kind of dying off regarding it. The excitement regarding it, the bullishness because of this company having these stock splits. Usually stock splits are seen as a great thing, whereas reverse splits are seen as a bad thing. These companies doing reverse splits need to reverse split to comply with NASDAQ compliance to stay above $1. Their stock price has basically dropped a lot if you're doing reverse splits. If you are doing regular splits, like Microstrategy just did, that is a huge positive. That means the stock has been performing fantastic. But they're basically saying the valuation is diverging significantly because of how much it has run up versus Bitcoin, because of how much it has outperformed versus Bitcoin. And while Bitcoin has done, what, right around a 4x from the bear market lows, Microstrategy, 16x. A 16x from the bear market lows, and I'm not even at the very low point, but you know, roughly 16x, give or take. And I expect it to continue to outperform Bitcoin. There will be pullbacks. It probably won't outperform to the level it has already from the bear market, obviously. But can MicroStrategy easily, you know, 4x from here, 5x from here versus Bitcoin doing a 2 to 3x? I think so. One thing to be aware of is if we don't keep moving up, if the RSI doesn't break higher, we are going to be looking at an RSI divergence. The RSI is starting to cool down, at least if we cool down here. If the price dies off here, if we just keep rallying, then this will be invalidated, so keep that in mind. But right now, we're looking at the RSI starting to level out, starting to double top, topping out. We'll see if it does this by close, but it looks like it's topping out while the price is still rising. We are getting higher highs, but we are not getting higher highs from the RSI. This may be where it tops out for the short term, cools down a bit depending on what Bitcoin does. If Bitcoin breaks all-time high or breaks its last cycle peak, sure, MicroStrategy can probably keep going. If Bitcoin gets rejected here at that last cycle peak once more, maybe we have to wait until FOMC, maybe we have to wait until the election, maybe we're waiting on PCE coming out in the next couple days. You know, regardless of that, if Bitcoin pulls down a little bit, I do think MicroStrategy will pull down more, so obviously. But you know, do you want to chase something like this? I mean, you could DCA here, but what I expect to see is I do expect MicroStrategy to continue to outperform Bitcoin. You know, consider though that it has been running a lot. Maybe we see a little retracement. Maybe we see a little cool down to the previous peak, a test of 200. That is definitely something that's possible. But you know, you got to realize, you know, just because something is overbought doesn't mean it can't run more. Let me show you what I mean. For instance, it was overbought here, back at $72. If you would have gotten out and not gotten back in, or if you instead you could have just scaled in heavily, scaled in more while we're in an overall bull trend. You could have scaled in more rather than exiting, and you would have made more than another double up. Rather than getting out on overbought, you know, that's the thing is overbought, RSI can fool retail so much, and it's fooled me many times. You see something overbought, you think, okay, it's overbought, it has to cool down. You get this like very small consolidation, you might expect more of a cool down, and then it just blasts off away from you. This happens all the time. Just because the RSI is overbought doesn't mean necessarily that it's time to sell. It doesn't mean that it has to drop significantly and go back to oversold. There will be times that it goes to overbought, very slightly cools down, barely gets out of overbought, and then just rallies right back to overbought again. Rallies right back to overbought again. Oh, and look at what we saw here. A huge sign to get out. A huge sign to get out. A bearish divergence. You see the RSI losing momentum, but you see the price is rising still. Look at that sign. On a longer term time frame, on a daily, seeing this RSI divergence, and this did mark our short-term top. So keep an eye on this here. If we don't keep running, this might be a short-term top where we cool down, retrace, and then go on to breakout in the near future. If we do have a substantial pullback, watch the 200 MA. MicroStrategy has very well been known to bounce on the 200 MA consistently. Throughout this whole bull run, with exception of 2023, we have basically been bouncing over the 200 MA every single time. Doesn't seem as reactive to the 50 MA here, but that 200 MA, if we suffer a considerable cool down, watch how it does at the 200. This will be something more to consider towards the bear market or towards crypto winter, like late 2025. How does MicroStrategy do when we start really cooling down? A break of the 200 MA would be a great sign that, hey, party's over. But of course, it depends on when we get it. Now, I wasn't planning on mentioning IREN, but it is one of the top performing Bitcoin miners today, if not the top performing Bitcoin miner, up like 15-16%. I think it has more room to run. It is not even near overbought. It just broke out of its ascending channel. So, you know, perhaps we come up towards $11, $12 before cooling down. Take advantage, in my opinion, while it's under the teens. I wouldn't be chasing it into the teens. Depends on your strategy though. But you know, is IREN ever going back to $1, $5 in the next year or so? No, I don't think so. I think IREN, if it's going to revisit these prices, it's going to be in crypto winter. The risk is pretty low if you're just looking a year out, in my opinion. If you're just looking 6 months out, I think the risk even here is relatively low. and I do expect a lot out of these Bitcoin miners. One thing is IREN is not expecting a profitable quarter. That is basically the vast majority of the Bitcoin miners that are not expecting profitability yet. But be prepared for some very, very bullish forward guidance. Consider this. Many of these Bitcoin miners are reporting the earnings that we are already out of. Keep that in mind. They're going to be reporting that earnings in November, some in December. They will have a great idea on how the last quarter of this year is going to be because they'll know what Bitcoin's price has been in. When we get to November, December, we'll know what Bitcoin has been, price wise from October, November, December quarter. So the miners that are reporting very, very late in this year, the previous quarter, they're going to have very accurate forward guidance. If Bitcoin can rally throughout the rest of October into November, these Bitcoin miners will likely give forward guidance that's profitable. And that could be kind of the shifting point, the big turning point for these Bitcoin miners where they finally start breaking out again and we kind of get out of these long corrections that they've been in. Keep in mind, IREN from the top back in July of 2024, it's still down 30%. At the worst, it was down like 64%. And from the bear market low, it is only up almost 10x. At one point, it was up about 13x. I think at the end of the cycle, IREN will probably be around a 20x, give or take. Meaning I expect minimum, things could always not go as planned, but I expect minimum from IREN, easy money, easy peasy, $20 per share. That is my conservative estimate. People are saying I'm very conservative with that, but you'd be surprised, things don't just go straight up. We might have IREN try to run to 20, then get rejected for a good part of 2025. We might see IREN go absolutely parabolic and go to $100. I'd love to see it. Do I expect that? Not at all. I do expect $20 though. Do I expect 40? We could see it. I'm not calling it out though. I'd rather be wrong with a price that hits than to be wrong with a price that never hits, if that makes sense. But anyways, guys, what are you buying right now? Are you still loading up on the Bitcoin miners? I think these are kind of the last opportunities to do so. Don't expect necessarily a 10x from here. This is not 2022. Could you expect a 2, 3, 4, maybe 5x from the Bitcoin miners from here? Sure. But thanks as always for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.